This video will cover the Year 8 linear solving applications preview. So these are the sort of questions you should expect to see in A and B level questions in this topic. I'll put some time tags down the bottom for you, so if you're following along on the practice sheet, you can just skip to the question numbers. Otherwise, I'll put a quick description of what each sort of question is as well, so you can follow along that way with what you need help with. Question 1 is a 3-step balance method question. So what we're going to do is systematically work our way back to x. So it's asking us to divide by 5. So in the first instance, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to times by 5. We'll do that to both sides, and all we'll have left is 2x minus 3, and that will equal 60. In the next move, we will remove that 3. It says to minus 3, so we are going to plus 3. So what we'll end up with is 2x's, and we'll end up with 63. Now we would like to get rid of the 2. It says to times, so we'll divide both sides by 2. All we'll have left is x, and on this side we'll have 63 on 2. And it's, 63 on 2. And it's fine to leave it as a fraction. You don't need to bring it down to a decimal. In the second one, we've got to collect some like terms before we start. So I can see here that we've got y's and y's. So what we'll do is we'll collect those up. So if I've got 2 y's and I take 5 y's away, I'll have negative 3 groups of y and 15. And now I'll start the balance method. Let's get rid of the 15. It says to add 15, so we'll take 15 away. Anything I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. So I'll have minus 3y's left. And on this side, I'll have 15. Now I'll get rid of the minus 3. It says to times by minus 3, so I'm going to divide by minus 3. When we do that to both sides, we'll end up with y. And on this side, we'll end up with minus 5. Last one's the same. We're going to collect up our like terms. So we've got lots of x's over here and some constants or loose numbers that we're going to tidy up as well. So if we've got we'll start with our 15. If we got minus 2x's and we add 8x's, we'll have 6x's. Then we take 4 away, so we'll end up with 2x's altogether. And then we've got 5 plus 3 makes 8. And now we just start with the balance method. So each of these we're just collecting like terms, then balance methoding. Let's get rid of the 8. It says plus 8, so we'll minus 8 on both sides. That will leave us 7. And on this side, we'll have 2 x's. Let's get rid of the 2. It tells me to times by 2. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. And all I'll have left is 7 on 2 equals x. And it's fine to leave it like that. If you answered it as 3.5 or 3.5, you won't lose any marks, but there's no need for it. Okay, question 2. We're going to start with some worded problems here. So question 2 is giving us a description, and we have to write an equation for this and then solve it. And we're going to need to learn some language around this. So difference, if you weren't aware, that means minus, okay? And it's important, it's easy to get this equation back to front. So even if you're good at writing equations, you have to think about the way that you write this. It's telling me the difference between some number, so we'll just give that any letter you like. I'll start with x. So the difference between some number and 12. Now, it's important you get that round the right way. If you talked about the difference between my age and yours, then you do my age minus yours. So the difference between some number and 12 is x minus 12. And then that's multiplied by 3. So we've got to put it in brackets so it doesn't get lost. And that will give us the answer 30. Once you've got to this point, then you solve it. Even if your equation's wrong, it doesn't matter. If you solve it, you'll still get some marks for the question. So make sure you keep going with it anyway. So let's expand. Well, actually, better than expanding. This time I can see that 30 can be divided by 3. So let's get rid of that 3 to start with. I'll divide by 3 on both sides. And that's great because that will get rid of that 3 for us. So that means the equation's a bit easier to deal with now. We've got x minus 12 equals 10. And then I just need to get rid of that 12. It says to minus 12, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'll add 12 to both sides. And that means that I've got x equals 22. And that one's and solve. In the next one, it's talking a new word now, product. Does anyone know what that means? Yeah, good. It's times. So the product of some number and 8. So we've got 8 times x, okay? And it's taken from or subtracted from 50. And it gives the answer 18. So you might notice that as I read the question, I'm just forming my equation. It might take a few goes, but you're just taking the important pieces of information out of the equation. And once you've got it written, you're just back to the balance method again. So this time we're going to take 50 from both sides. And what we'll be left with is minus 8 x's. And on this side, we'll have minus 32. And now we've got to get rid of that minus 8. It says to times, so we'll divide. So let's divide both sides by minus 8. All I'll have left is x. And on this side, I'll have positive 4. Just remember when you do a negative divided by a negative, you'll end up with a positive answer. Alrighty, moving on. Now we've got sum. So if you're not aware, sum means plus. So the sum of 13 and another number. So we've got 13 and another number is divided by 4, and that gives us the answer 5. It takes quite a bit of practice to do these equations. If you don't get it first up, just be patient. So we need to now solve just using balance method. So let's get rid of that 4. It says to divide by 4, so I'm going to times by 4, both sides. So I'll end up with 13 plus x equals 20. And now I need to get rid of the 13. It's a positive number, so I'll take 13 away from both sides. And I'll end up with x equals 7. And that one's finished as well. We're back to product. So remember, product means times. So the product of 7 and some number, so I've got 7 x's, is added to 23, so plus 23, gives the answer or equals 50. Now we're just back to a balance method question again. So let's take 23 from both sides. All I'll have left is 7 x's. And on this side, I'll have 27. Let's remove the 7. It says the times by 7, so we'll divide by 7 both sides. And all I have left is x. And on this side, I've got 27 over 7. And that one doesn't like it. Okay, question 3. Now this one's directing us that we have to expand it first. So this was a bit like the fundamentals question. So even if there's a trick to this one, we can't use it. We're going to have to expand it out. And remember when we expanded, it's that first number multiplied by each of the things in the brackets. So it's that times that, then that times that. There we go. 5 times x makes 5x. 5 times 1 makes 5. And that equals x plus 12. And now we're just rearranging the equation. We're getting x by itself, so it's sort of balance method from here. We'll take x off both sides. And we'll only have 4 x's over here and 5. On this side, we'll be left with 12. Now we might move that 5. It's a plus 5, so we'll take 5 from both sides. We'll be left with 4 x's on this side. And on this side, we'll be left with 7. This one's going to work out to be a fraction as well. It says times by 4, so we'll divide. And then we'll be left with x equals 7 over 4. Going well. Next one, we've got to expand both sides, so it's a bit more involved. 3 times x makes 3x. 3 times 2 makes 6. 2 times x makes 2x. And 2 times 1 makes 2. Let's start shuffling these around. We might take 2 x's from both sides. That will leave us with x and 6. And on this side, I'll have 2. Now, I've got a positive 6, so I might take it away. all I'll have left is x, and on this side I'll have minus 4. You guys are doing a really good job. Okay, question C, same deal. Let's expand it and then solve it. So 5 times 4 makes 20. 5 times x makes 5x. 2 times 1 makes 2, and 2 times negative 3x makes minus 6x's. Let's shuffle everything around. I'm going to choose to move the 6x's because that way it'll keep my x's positive. So I might add 6x's to both sides. And what I'll end up with over here is 20 plus, 11x. And on this side I'll have 2. Get rid of that 20, it's a positive number, so we'll take it away. Do that to both sides. I'll have 11x's, and on this side I'll have minus 18. And now I'll divide both sides by 11. And I'll end up with negative 18 on 11. You can't simplify that fraction, so we can just leave it as a fraction. That's fine. That way you won't need a calculator or anything. Let's keep going. All right, up to the last 3 on this page. So 4 times x makes 4x. 4 times 3 makes 12. And we've got x minus 5. I might start by removing that single x, so it's a positive, so I'll take it away. That's going to leave me 3 x's and 12. And on this side, I have got minus 5. Now I might take that 12 away. It's a positive number, so I'll subtract it from both sides, and I'll be left with 3 x's. And on this side, I'll be left with minus 17. Now I will divide by 3 on both sides, and I'll only have x left. And on this side, I'll have minus 17 thirds. That can't be simplified any further, so it can be left like that. Question E, 2 times x makes 2x's. 2 times minus 4 makes minus 8. 3 times x makes 3x. And 3 times 7 makes 21. I'm going to move the x's to the right this time, just so that I get a nice positive single x. It's no problem if you want to move it the other way, but I'm going to move the x to the right just for something different. So we'll take 2 x's from both sides, and you will end up with minus 8 equals x plus 21. Just saves me dealing with negative numbers later. And then I'll take 21 from both sides, and I will end up with minus 29 being x. You can write it the other way around if you like, but it's the same answer. All right, 4 times 1 makes 4, and 4 times 2x makes 8x. 3 times 4 makes 12, and 3 times negative 3x makes minus 9x's. Just watching the negatives there. This time we might move the 9x so that everything stays nice and positive. So let's add 9x's to both sides. And I will end up with 4 plus 17x's. And on this side, I'll only have 12 left. This time I might move the 4. It's a positive number, so I'll take it away from both sides. And I'll be left with 17 x's on this side and 8 on this side. Next, I will divide by 17 on both sides. And I'll end up with x, and I'll end up with 8 over 17. Question 4 is getting us to use linear, but it's asking us with respect to geometry. So a rectangle has an area of 64 square meters and a length of 4x plus 2 and a width of 2 meters. Anyway, what we need to do is we need to go back, and hopefully you've remembered that the area of a rectangle is the length times the width. Some people teach this as base times height, but it's the same thing. But this time, we've got a little bit of information. We've got the area, which is 64. The length of it is 4x plus 2, and the width is 2 meters. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to grab this and shuffle it across a little bit. Oops, we might try that again. Going to have to grab this and shuffle it across a little bit so we've got enough room. So that has to all be multiplied by the width of 2. And so then what we've got is, after that, all that worded mess, it's just the same questions as what we've been answering. We just have to either expand it and solve it, or here's a quick trick for this one. It's not telling us that we have to expand it first this time, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to start with, because that's going to make the question heaps easier. That gets rid of that 2 there, and so now we've just got 32 equals 4x plus 2. And so now we'll just go balance method. Let's take 2 off both sides. All I'll have left over here is 30. And on this side, I'll have 4 x's. Then I'll divide both sides by 4. And I'll have 30 over 4 being x. Now that fraction can be simplified. So we can write this one as x equals, and 2 will go into 30 15 times, and it will go into 4 twice. Or you might answer that as 7.5. Either way is fine. Next one, a triangle has an area of 112, a base of 8, and a height of 5 minus 4x. We're going to have to try and remember the formula for the area of a triangle here. So the area of a triangle is half of the base times the height. So let's sub in what we've got is equal to, we know the area is 112, which is 40, and 8 times negative. We can see that the base is 8 minus 32, and the height is 5 minus 4x. And now we'll subtract 40, all divided by 2. Okay. I'll end up with 100. Now all we need to do is just switch it up and do a bit of balance method. It might be easiest just to get rid of that. Now what we'll do is we'll just times both sides by 2, so it doesn't look quite so confusing. And we'll end up with, that means that we'd have 224 over here, and on this side we've got 8 times 5 now that one can be 4x. Simplified a bit, and definitely want to calculate. And now what we'll do is we'll expand. So that one will end up being either x equals 92 on negative 16, or you might answer that one in decimal form as negative 5.75. And the other thing is we might not forget our units in these questions. I realise I've forgotten those in the last ones as well. So this one's a question about distance. So this one was in centimetres, and the last question was in metres. So we've got to make sure that we put in those so we don't lose any cheap marks. So a slight amendment to this question here as well. We've just put it in a calculator, and it can actually be shrunk down to minus 23 over 4. So a good one for your calculator. So that fraction's not quite simplified in that one. Alrighty, let's keep going. The perimeter of a rectangle is 64, its length's 2x, and its width's 16. So we know that the perimeter of a rectangle is twice its length plus twice its width. Okay, let's sub in. So we've got the perimeter is 64. We've got a length of 2x. So we've got 2 times 2x here. And we've got a width of 16. So we've got 2 lots of 16 as well. Okay. You're not used to seeing me write it like that. So another way of writing this, the same thing, is 2 times 2x. And 2 times 16. So that means that 64 will be 4 x's plus 32. Let's get rid of that 32 first. So we're back to balance method, minus 32. hopefully you're starting to notice how important being able to do the balance method is, because all your maths relies on it from here on in, really. Let's divide by 4 both sides. All I'll have left here is 8, and over here I'll have x, so I've solved it. And we're just going to say, therefore, x is 8 centimetres, because we're not forgetting our units. Alrighty, moving on. A triangle has an area of 160 square millimetres, a base and a height. So again, we know the area of a triangle equals the base times the height divided by 2, and we'll sub in what we know. So it's got an area of 160. It's got a base of 8x. And, oh yeah, it's a trick question. Good question. Good pickup. So it's actually 80x if we move it all into millimeters. And then it is also a height of 20. Now, having a look at this, there's some pretty big numbers in this. So what we might be better off doing is we might actually be better off doing this one in centimeters, because then we could get rid of those zeros. So it might be easier to actually make this 16 equals 8x times 2 over 2 and move everything over into centimeters, because no one wants to deal with all those extra zeros. So let's switch to balance method and multiply both sides by 2. So we got 32 over here, and we got 8x's times 2, so 16x's on this side. And now we just divide by 16 on both sides. And what we'll end up with is 2 equals x, or better written as x equals 2, and we have to make sure, particularly in this one, that we write down our units, okay? So 2 centimetres, or you might have got x is 20 millimetres if you'd run with the millimetres. You've got a calculator, so you don't have to be scared of the big numbers, but we might as well have made it easier for ourselves. Okay, perimeter. Now these ones are really easy, and everyone hopefully can get these ones, okay? The perimeter is just a distance around a shape. So all we're going to do is literally take these, and if you do Maths Extended next year, you'll see stacks of these. It's literally just this side plus this side plus this side plus this side. So all you're going to do is write it exactly as you see it. So you go, I might start here just so that I don't lose track, and I'm going to go clockwise. So I'm going to go x plus 3 plus x plus x plus 5 plus x plus 2, okay? And it's telling me that the perimeter is 200 centimeters, okay? And now all I do is I just sweep through and collect my like terms. So I count how many x's I've got. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 x's. So I'm going to say 4 x's. And then I go in green this time, maybe 3 plus 5 makes 8 plus 2 makes 10 equals 200. And then we switch off geometry and we're just back to the balance method. So we are literally just going, let's just take 10 off both sides. And I'll end up with 4 x's over here. And on this side, I'll end up with 190. Let's divide both sides by 4. And I'll end up with x. And if we put it into our calculator, we'll have 47.5 centimeters. Okay, don't forget your units. Same deal with this one, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to trick you with this one. This one's a parallelogram. It's still the perimeter, so it's this side plus this side plus this side plus this side. Don't forget that you've got to double up on each of them, okay? So a couple of ways of writing this. You could just write it all out in one go. A faster way, or a better algebraic way, if you like, is we could go, right, well, I know I've got two sides that are 80 minus x, and I know I've got two sides that are 2x plus 10 equals 200. What you could do is you could go 2x plus 10 plus 80 minus x plus 2x plus 10 plus 80 minus x, but it's longer winded. So this way you can just expand, collect like terms and use balance method. So 2 80s are 160. 2 times minus x is minus 2x's. 2 times 2x makes 4x, and 2 times 10 makes 20. Collect your like terms, so you've got 160 plus 20, makes 180. Then you've got minus 2x plus 4x makes positive 2x's. And on this side, you've got 200. And now we're just back to balance method as per usual. So let's take 180 off both sides. All I'll have left is 2x. And all I'll have left here is 20. Let's divide by 2 on both sides. All I'll have left is x. And the answer 10. And we're in centimetres, so we'll put our units in and we're done. Long question, but not too bad if you can just write it out and go for it. Right, now here we go. We've got a couple where we're gonna, these ones really are hard, okay? This is very, very solid year 9, early year 10 grade questions to do, okay? What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to write an equation and then you're gonna have to substitute in it to solve, okay? So what we need to do is we need to sort of like unpack the question a little bit. I want to know how old John is, okay? Now, what we need is the information for the equation, and that comes from here. Bill is twice as old as John will be in 5 years' time. So let's run with that one. So John, we're talking about John's age in 5 years' time, so we're going to start with that. And by the way, I'm going to let B equal Bill. So you can choose any letters you want. You can use X and Y, but when I get to these sorts of questions, I tend to use letters that make sense, okay? So let's run with B for Bill and J for John. We're talking about what John's going to be in 5 years' time. So let's chuck that in. It'll be whatever John's age is now plus 5, okay? And we're saying that Bill is going to be twice as old as him. So we've got to double that, okay? And that is going to be Bill's age. So I'm going to try and say that again to you. Bill is going to be twice as old as John is in 5 years' time. Okay, so you've got to read it like a sentence. So I'll try that on this for you for later. So Bill is going to be twice John's age in 5 years from now. That's what that reads. And now all we've got to do is sub in and solve. It says that Bill is now 20 years old. So let's chuck it in. So if Bill's 20, the rest is unknown. Let's get rid of that 2 first instead of expanding. It's a bit quicker. 2 will go into 20, so let's divide both sides by 2. That means we've just got to deal with J plus 5 over here. And that will be 10. Whoa. 10. And now it tells me to plus 5. I'm just minusing 5. So we're really just balance methoding here. So J equals 5. Go back and quickly check the question. How old is John? Write it as a word. Therefore, John is 5 years old. It's a worded question. Give it a worded answer so you don't lose any marks. Right, last question. Now we've got Kim and Bill. So we'll use K for Kim and we'll use B for Bill, just so we don't get confused. Choose whatever letters you want though. All right, to write the equation for this, Kim is twice as tall as Bill, but only when Bill is standing on a 50 centimetre box. Okay, so I'll try and read that again to you. Kim is twice Bill's height when he's standing on a 50 centimetre box. This one's pretty abstract, as we said before. So let's try and solve it. We're just down to balance method again. We can substitute in Bill's height now. So we've got Kim's, which is still unknown, and 50 centimetres is 2 times 120, and I'm getting that from here. So Kim plus 50 is 240. So now if we switch to balance method and we take 50 off each side, we'll find that Kim's height is 190. So therefore Kim is 190 centimetres.